certified school personnel to carry concealed firearms.
We are back and fresh off a vote on the House floor. Congressman Trey Gowdy, chairman of the House Oversight Committee and member of the House Intelligence Committee as well. Good to see you tonight, Chairman. Thank you for being here. So this, obviously, the Democrat memo, the rebuttal to your memo, came out over the weekend, and you've had a chance to look it over, no doubt. What did you think about their assertion that there was plenty of other reasons to surveil Carter Page other than the dossier?
Well, my first reaction to that is if you had a bunch of other reasons to get a FISA application on Carter Page, then why did you need the dossier in a Yahoo News article? If you have enough information without using the dossier and a newspaper article, then why did you use it? So I've never taken the position that they didn't have a reason for being interested in Carter Page. I've never taken that position. But if you have enough, why are you relying on a National Enquirer article and, no offense, but media reporting to get a warrant?
So when you go to the, they had every reason to want to do that, right? That you go through their document and you look at the meetings, the FBI surveillance of Carter Page starting back in 2013, discussions that he had with individuals. At one point, members of the Russian intelligence arm call him an idiot. They say that he's practicing his Russian on them. So obviously there's a lot of back and forth going on there. My question is, if there was so much concern over Carter Page, it doesn't seem like the investigation is particularly interested in him anymore and hasn't been for some time.
Well, he hasn't been indicted. We don't have any idea what's coming, if anything, by Robert Mueller. But you put your finger on something. The Russians didn't take him seriously. I don't think the FBI took him seriously. I spent a long time interviewing him. If ever a witness needed to avail himself of his Sixth Amendment right to a lawyer, it was Carter Page. That was one of the most painful interviews I have ever been part of. It was actually sad. I think Democrats, if they were to be honest, the House Intel interview of Carter Page, they would tell you it was sad. He doesn't know when to stop talking, and nobody takes him seriously. So he's not Jason Bourne. He's not James Bond. If the FBI wanted to investigate him, fine, go do it. But why are you relying on opposition research by the DNC and not telling the court where you got it?
And your memo also pointed out that Deputy Director McCabe testified before the committee in December of 2017 that no surveillance warrant would have been sought from FISA without the Steele dossier confirmation. So it's pretty tough to argue that, given the fact that McCabe himself said that they needed that dossier in order to get it. Now, I know you have a lot of questions about the dossier and how aware the rest of the intelligence arms in the Obama administration were of this. How is it going with getting answers or responses from John Brennan and Mr. Clapper?
I just bumped into Devin on the floor. I don't think the deadline is expired for us to get answers, but, John Brennan and Clapper and others have a lot to say when they're on television shows. So I would expect them to have at least enough time to answer some pretty rudimentary but fundamental questions about what they knew about the dossier and when they knew it. We've had, I interviewed Brennan, several months ago?
Yeah, we played that the other night.
I don't think he was aware that that dossier was used in a court proceeding.
All right. Another topic for you. Hope Hicks is going to testify in front of the House Intel Committee tomorrow, we understand. What is the scope of the questioning was one of the issues that delayed that. What is the scope of the questioning for her tomorrow?
You know what, Martha, I hate to be a bad Republican, but I don't think Congress ought to be limiting the scope of the question. I mean, it has to be relevant, obviously. We can't ask her about something that happened in high school. And I say that because the Democrats sometimes do like to go back 25 years to ask questions. But we're investigating what did Russia do, with whom did they do it, what was the U.S. government's response, and then the issue of disseminating classified information. That's the scope to me. So if she was part of the campaign, then we ought to be able to ask her about Adam Schiff's allegations of collusion. So I don't think that we ought to be limited to anything other than that scoping document and what's relevant to that.
And you'll be asking about the Trump Tower meeting in June of 2016 and the response to that was put together on the Trump plane, I would imagine.
The response might also be in Bob Mueller's jurisdiction, but we will ask about that, and we're entitled to ask about it. But most assuredly, that meeting in June of 2016 at Trump Tower. It's relevant.
Trey Gowdy, always good to see you, sir. Thank you very much.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you.
So moments ago, the names of the victims of the Florida massacre read on the House floor, followed by a moment of silence. This comes amid growing demands that Broward County Sheriff Scott Israel step down. as Florida Governor Rick Scott orders an investigation into how Israel's department handled all of this, which is getting murkier by the moment. Could this catastrophe have been prevented?
When did your deputies, not Peterson, but the others, when did they arrive on the scene? Because Coral Springs sources say when Coral Springs police arrived, there were Broward deputies there in addition to Peterson.
And I don't dispute that, but that is an active investigation. We have not taken statements yet from the Coral Springs officers.
I really believe I'd run in there even if I didn't have a weapon. And I think most of the people in this room would have done that too, because I know most of you. But the way they performed was really a disgrace.
Trace Gallagher joins us now live in our West Coast newsroom with the story. Trace.
Martha, Broward County Sheriff Scott Israel thinks his leadership has been, quote, amazing. Governor Rick Scott will leave that assessment up to the Florida Department of Law Enforcement. The governor has now confirmed that FDLE will conduct a full and immediate investigation. Here's the governor. Watch.
Give us the facts. Hold people accountable. The local sheriff's department, they've got to be completely transparent. We have to do a thorough investigation, and whoever didn't do their job has to be held accountable.
But 74 state GOP lawmakers don't want to sit and wait for the findings. They're calling on Governor Scott to suspend the sheriff right now, saying, quoting, the failures of Sheriff Israel and his deputies during and after this horrific shooting and their failures to intervene regarding Nicholas Jacob Cruz in the years, months, and days leading up to the shooting are unacceptable and unforgivable. The years, months, and days part of that statement I just read refers to the fact that dating back to 2008, Broward County deputies responded to at least 24 calls involving Nicholas Cruz and his family, including a call from someone in 2016 warning a deputy that Cruz could be, quote, a school shooter in the making. The deputy who mishandled that call has now been placed on restrictive duty. And now we're hearing a brand new defense for school resource officer Scott Peterson. He's the deputy accused of taking cover outside the school instead of confronting the shooter. His lawyer says Peterson did the right thing because he thought the shooting was outside, so he followed protocol. And Coral Springs police officers are now telling local newspapers that when they arrived on scene, 3 other Broward County deputies also waited outside the building. The sheriff is not disputing that. He's also not commenting further. We should note that post-Columbine, officers around the country are trained to confront the shooter even if they are alone and outgunned, because the presence of law enforcement is proven to slow down or stop the majority of suspects. Martha.
Trace, thank you very much. So there is outcry tonight for a new system to be put in place at the FBI regarding its tip line. Take a look at how they handled a call less than 2 months ago from a woman who said she was very close to the shooter. She describes his disturbing social media posts and how he likes to cut up animals. The FBI employee responding, The woman says he lives with guns and is, quote, going to explode. The FBI employee responds, okay. He has a, quote, whole bag with all kinds of rifles and he's going to buy more. The operator responds, okay. The caller thinks about Cruz getting into a school and just shooting the place up. And she is met with, thanks. So if anybody else has questions, they can call you back. Is that correct? Terry Turchi is former Deputy Assistant Director of the FBI. Terry, welcome. It's good to have you with us tonight. What goes through your mind when you hear that transcript?
Martha, it's hard to sit here and do this interview with you. If we're going to go out to the public and say that if you see something, say something, we have to be ready to do something. And that was always what the FBI stood for. And I have to think, if you look back to the days after 9/11, a lot of decisions were made about how to allocate resources and where to put agents. And in freeing up a lot of agents to do terrorism and other work, I think a lot of them were taken off of complaint duty, because in the day I was in the FBI, being a complaint agent was a big deal. We were very careful in field divisions to choose the right people to put on complaint duty. So you talked to an agent. You called your local FBI. You talked to an FBI agent. You didn't talk to a professional staff person. And the reason is simple. FBI agents start their career by going to the FBI Academy in Quantico. They learn how to take complaints. They learn how to go through what our violations are. They go out to their first field office. They have a senior mentor as an agent. They interview people who've been not only the victims of crimes, but people who've committed crimes. And as they move on in their career, they get even more experience there. So when they get ready to want to maybe express an interest in being a complaint agent, they know how to sort through this information, and they know what threats and risks are. And that's lacking today, and it's very clear from those conversations.
And you caught the Unabomber based on 55,000 tips that came into those kind of calls, right?
Our biggest worry, Martha, in dealing with the Unabomber tip line after we put that manifesto out, okay, it's out there. We hope somebody will recognize it. Now, we have to be able to pick it out, the right complaint and the right call from all the calls we got. And yes, we got 55,000 calls to the Unabomber tip line between September 19th, when we put out the manifesto, and the middle of February. That call that actually was the call that broke this case came from an agent in Washington field office who actually refused to take no. She'd been discouraged, actually. Her name was Molly Flynn, but she called out to San Francisco 4 times over the intercom system, and an agent supervisor named Joel Moss